Right, so in a video the other day, I spoke of Israel now striking central and southern Gaza and how they had been dropping flyers into settlements in South Eastern Gaza telling people to evacuate from there, showing that nowhere is now safe in Gaza since the ceasefire has sadly ended. Evacuating from the north wasn't where Israel wanted to leave things. They were, it would appear, driving people into the southwest now. And then lo and behold, the Israeli ambassador to the UK, a far-right Zionist enthusiast called Tzipi Hotovely, dropped mention that there was a safe haven in the southwest of Gaza for the 2 million Gazan inhabitants to move to, called Mowasi, more correctly called al-mawasi. If Hotovely knew anything she was actually talking about, she could at least get the name right. But she doesn't, nor does she care. And in a rather embarrassing moment for her on Sky News when she was spouting off this drivel, they punched up images of al-Mowasi as she was talking. And it may as well be a snapshot of the local tip, because it's nothing more than a barren wasteland, strewn with rubbish, a fraction of the size of the Gaza Strip itself, already overcrowded as it is. Mowasi might be one option, but it isn't the option for Israel here. Hotovely was floundering for an excuse to justify the ethnic cleansing going on, and without doubt made clear that the Gazan people will not have their land back, whether Hamas is taken out or not. If they are already sizing up alternative places to live, that should be obvious to everyone by now. Right, so let's talk a little bit about Tzipi Hotovely first, because we do seem to have a track record for having the most ardent, committed Zionists here in the UK as Israel's representatives, she having replaced the equally odious Mark Regev when he left to become Netanyahu's official excuse maker. She isn't just a hardline Zionist, she's ultra hardline. And as the UK ambassador, boy do our media love to platform her, despite there clearly being no sense of impartiality in them doing so. And by her own track record is not somebody who should be accorded such platforms anyway. That she's the UK ambassador for Israel is a gross insult to our intelligence, becoming more obvious the more eyes are opened. But after having spent 12 years in Israeli government before that, so much of the problems we're seeing for Palestinians, the abuse, the deaths and destruction in recent years that our media basically ignored up until October 7th at the hands of a government she was once part of. This is a woman who in 2017 attacked UNESCO, part of the UN, for naming the old city of Hebron in the West Bank a World Heritage Site. She stood up in the Knesset, held up a copy of the Old Testament in one hand and a copy of a book called The History of the Palestinian People in the other. And this book is an absolute insult to Palestinians, since it is an intentionally published book of empty pages, implying they have no history, and telling the UN they should read both books because clearly Palestinians have no heritage sites. This is a woman who is so far right, she once criticised the Board of Deputies of British Jews. Yeah, she criticised them. She accused them of working against Israeli interests because despite their many, many faults, they do still back a two-state solution. And of course, she has shamed herself already during this conflict when 10 days into the siege of Gaza, she went on TV instead of the, again, UN-reported humanitarian crisis, that there was no humanitarian crisis. Well, we absolutely know different now, don't we? She is absolutely awful. There aren't words to describe the level of awfulness she's at. And so we come to her latest platforming and her selling of al-mawasi as an option to home all Gazans going forwards, and where they very much appear to be being herded towards by Israeli actions in the south of Gaza right now. To put into context the size of this bit of Gaza, we know the Gaza Strip was already one of the most densely populated pieces of land going. It's a strip of land just 41 kilometres long for most of its length, a little more than 6 kilometres wide at that, goes up to 12 near the bottom. It is just 365 square kilometres or 141 square miles in old money in size. It is tiny. It is little more than a tenth of the size of Cornwall. Al-Mowasi is just 1 kilometre wide and is just 14 kilometres long, well less than 1/20th the size of the whole of Gaza. Tzipi Hotovely thinks this is where all Gazans can go, all 2.2 million of them. She said on Sky, there is a place in Gaza called the Mowasi. The Mowasi is a place where they all can have shelter, together with internationally designated shelters for the Palestinian people. You cannot say that Israel is not facilitating that, together with humanitarian aid. Well, she's a liar. A big fat squiggly wriggly one. It's becoming a real struggle to understand how a group of people like those in power in Israel can treat other people like the Palestinians with such disregard, with such disgust, with their own not all that distant history on such matters still reasonably fresh in their minds. Lord knows they love reminding us of those things, but here we are. The Mowasi, as she called it, Al-Mowasi correctly is what it should be called, is basically a junkyard. It's a tip. There is nothing there. There's no aid. There's no shelter. No nothing. She implied that Israel were facilitating a move there. It is just a desolate wasteland of sand dunes where the land meets the sea. She's basically all for shoving them onto a dirty beach in desperate need of a clean-up. No aid tents there. No UN. No food. No nothing. It's a death sentence to be sent there and left there. But the bigger question that I'm not seeing anyone asking is why the hell are Israel not committing to letting the Gazans have their territory back when they've dealt with Hamas? Why are they sending them to this place, a little bit of what they formerly had? Why will they not let them return to their homes wherever in Gaza they were? And of course we all know the answer to this, and that is because Israel will claim Gaza for more settlers when all is said and done. Palestinians can either end up in this desolate place to die a slow agonizing death, with nothing to do but build sand castles, or be pushed out into the Sinai, displaced from their land, blatant collective punishment, clearly a war crime, clearly in breach of international law. And the UK ambassador to Israel is perfectly comfortable advocating for this place on telly. Why has she not been expelled from the UK yet? Let's face it, if al-mawasi was anything other than a barren wasteland, you can bet your bottom dollar that Israel would have it as well. As it is completely worthless land, and if Palestinians occupied it under any other terms, you can expect they get bombed for it too. That might just happen anyway. Who would bet against that? Offering up this little bit of land is justification for them bombing the rest of the south where Israel sent Gazan people to begin with. This won't stop until people stop making excuses for Israel. This will only end when there are no Gazans left in Gaza. They'll all either be dead or living in tent cities in Egypt, the second to Nakba as this clearly seems to be now. I don't think many would argue against that will be complete, and this is the end game of having left Israel to be an occupying force since 1967. They should have been dealt with for their occupations decades ago. Is it any wonder they think they can just walk in and drive the locals out under the excuse of taking on Hamas when they won't claim victory on that until the last Gazan is basically shoved out of their own land? Then it'll be onto the West Bank and the Golan Heights next. When will international pressure ever appear on this? Because they are under no pressure right now, and that is why they're so comfortable being so blatant in what they're doing. They are under no pressure to stop right now by the leaders who can affect change, which emboldens rancid creatures like the Israeli ambassador to the UK to lie like they do. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this video useful. Please like, share and subscribe if you did. More content out daily. Please do have your say on this story in the comments below and be part of the conversation. Meanwhile, here's a video recommendation where Israel aren't just, of course, targeting Palestinians, but anyone helping them too, as a convoy of medical aid trucks from Médecins Sans Frontières got targeted, and that was just the beginning of their ordeal. And I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.